and everywhere else that says, Ari, be careful. You're talking about things that could upset them. And what I want to tell everybody is this: fuck that. That is censorship. Okay. That is absolute censorship. If you have fear to say something, that is censorship. And that is the most dangerous kind too, because it's invisible and cloaked as if you speak up, some bad thing is going to happen. And candidly, if a company doesn't want me to speak up, don't do shitty things. How's that? Why are we gaslighting me, saying that I'm the bad person for speaking truth? Yeah. So like, dude, designers on Fiverr and Upwork and shit, go find another job. You guys are fucked. It's over. That game's over. That game's over.
Ari, hello. Thank you for joining me today on BlatzChatz.
Thanks, Jen. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a huge fan, and so just honored to be alongside you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The honor is all mine. And I'm hoping for a little bit of spice today. Are you going to bring it?
I'm going to bring the heat for sure.
Yes, I am here for it. Ari, for those who may not know who you are, it happens. I would love to just start off with a little level set and tell us how you got into UX and share your journey with us.
Yeah, for those who might not have met me, my name is Ari. I'm a police officer, detective turned researcher. I got my master's and doctorate, and then I entered the world of organizational psychology for 2 years before I entered the world of research. I worked in like large CPG companies, big tech companies like Twitter and Twilio, and legacy companies like Panasonic, startups like GTM Hub. And I built and scaled UX and market research teams and analytics research and insights organizations within those companies. And I've done that for quite a few years now. I don't want to age myself too much.
Here, yeah, I'm with you there. So, Ari, recently, unfortunately, you shared some news that you got laid off from your most recent position. Why don't you break down what happened there a little bit?
Yeah. So I was leading research at Twilio, research and research operations, leading their communications business unit, which is their largest flagship unit. I think that to fully understand the organizational dynamics, the researcher in me wants to give everybody some facts. Maybe the detectives as too. The facts are I was there for 2 years, 7 months. And in 2 years, 7 months, I had five different bosses. Five. Five different bosses. I also, in that time, saw at least 4 rounds of layoffs. Mine might have been the fourth or fifth. So we're not talking about a completely stable, comfortable, fun environment during my tenure there. I would also tell you that I had my last performance review in January. I think that cycle ended in January. Twilio has 5 levels. There's exceptional, which is the top. There's meets, which is the middle, and then there's low. But there's one, I think it's exceeds standards, like not exceptional, but exceeds. That was my performance review. So I got a higher than average performance review. I suspect that actually I know because it's like any other corporation, they bell shape curve it. So that means other people didn't get that. And yet, when the layoff hit, I got it. And so what happened is I suspected something was coming for a little while. I didn't know that it was going to hit us or us, I guess me. Um, and I woke up on a Monday morning, looked at my phone, and there was the email saying, "Hey, you're no longer employed here," with all the normal threats that companies give you, which is be silent or else. Here's your severance, and here's your Cobra stuff. And by the way, thank you for all your effort. This is just a restructuring. Um, and with that, the initial feeling was a little bit of like relief because I was no longer in that chaotic environment. Then I went through I see how hard the market is, but it's probably not going to be that hard for me, which is bullshit. It is just as hard for me as it is for everybody else. Um, and then I've gone through this cycle of applying for, just like many others in my situation, hundreds of jobs, getting ghosted, getting ignored, having shitty referrals, like having, we could talk about that in a second. There's some funny stuff, and it's just been an awful experience. And I think there's a lot of things that brought us here, but I think that companies have demonstrated that they don't give a shit about the people that work there.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you said, Ari, your first reaction, which is surprising, to be honest. Your first reaction wasn't, fuck, I'm laid off. Your first reaction was relief.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, it was a very chaotic tenure. I loved my team there, the people I worked with, but the organization was really broken. A new product officer came in. It felt like a lesson in nepotism. We couldn't get a foothold. What's really upsetting is while I was there, I decided to start a democratization program because that's what they needed, or that's what they said they needed. We started doing that. I hired a democratization researcher. We scaled tools. We did all of these things. If they didn't want that stuff, then why let me build it and then get rid of me midstream? It was just not wanting to work with that group of people as my leadership anymore. The leadership there was broken and probably still continues to be. That said, like the people I worked directly with, I loved them. They were some of the most dedicated, hardworking researchers I've ever worked beside.
Yeah. And
I have to add.
yeah,
So since I've done this, I'm having this conversation here. There's going to be people that are going to reach out because I've had this happen now on LinkedIn and everywhere else that says, Ari, be careful. You're talking about things that could upset them. And what I want to tell everybody is this: fuck that. That is censorship. Okay. That is absolute censorship. And just because it's not like they're not saying it in their document that we're censoring you, if you have fear to say something, that is censorship. And it's the most dangerous kind too, because it's invisible and cloaked as if you speak up, some bad thing is going to happen. And candidly, if a company doesn't want me to speak up, don't do shitty things. How's that? Why are we gaslighting me, saying that I'm the bad person for speaking truth? I had 5 bosses in 2 years, 7 months. That's a fact. I challenge anybody to tell me that's a healthy environment. So if that's a fact and me speaking that truth, don't give me 5 fucking bosses in 2 years, 7 months.
right, right. What were some of the censorship threats that they were throwing at you?
Oh, it's not the censorship from the company. It's censorship from people on LinkedIn who would be like, be careful. Your next employer is not going to like this, or you should be careful what you're saying because you don't know how this is perceived. And the truth is, if I have to worry about how that stuff is perceived, I'm being censored. And the reality is, Justice Brandeis said it best: sunlight is the best disinfectant. This is toxic, shitty things that we need to put into sunlight. Now, I'm definitely not telling anybody to go out and badmouth their employer. That's not a good look. But speaking about the truth of things, I don't think that's a negative. That's not a net negative.
Yeah, I hear you, Ari. So, what are some of the things that people should be truthful, start having conversations about?
I think there's a lot of things that we soft pedal around, and we do that because we're trying to be protective of our own little kingdom. And I think that those exist within your company, but I think those exist within the larger X and research space. Here's a stone cold reality for everybody. It is not the reason that things are crumbling right now, for researchers specifically. The reason things are crumbling right now are that the research tool companies launched tools, services, and products that were targeted toward non-researchers. And when those started getting procured by non-researchers, you don't need researchers anymore. AI just accelerated some of this. It's just rocket fuel for what was already happening. Make no mistake about it. The tool companies are now figuring out ways to market to non-research teams.
Right? Because their ultimate goal is to sell you their tool, right?
100%. And if there's less researchers, their job is profitability also. Weeks before my layoff, I was starting to talk to research company CEOs about the importance of research. And surprisingly, if you look at all the research tool companies and ask how many of them have researchers on staff, I think you're going to be really fucking surprised, because you're a research tool company and you're not hiring researchers. That begs the question, why? Is it not important? And they would all say that research is important. They just don't think you need a person to do it.
Interesting. The hypocrisy of that, huh?
It's entertaining at best, but I think it says what we all know, and that's that when you have different data sources being surfaced, like product analytics, marketing analytics, you have tools like Sprig, or you have tools like any kind of heat map tools or user testing, or all of these tools that can do and collect data and information, to expect that people aren't going to use that information to make decisions and instead are going to just continue to hire research teams is crazy. And sure, the FANG companies and some of these others are going to continue to hire teams, but it's not because they're looking for research thought leadership. They're looking for a surrogate. We have scut work we don't want to do, and we want somebody to fucking do it for us. We need somebody to go out and do interviews. So go fucking do interviews and bring us back what we need to know. But don't tell us what, we don't really care what you think. We just need that information because we want to make the decision. And make no mistake about it, AI is just accelerating all of this. And so when people are like, AI is going to replace people or not replace people, I think that's the wrong conversation to be having. The reality is AI is here. And is it going to replace everybody or not replace everybody? It's a silly thing to be talking about. The right thing to be talking about is what happened to the typing pools in the United States in the 1950s. There were people that typed, word processors came in, typing didn't go away. Research isn't going to go away. The way it's done is going to go away. You know what? Even more recently, not long ago, you couldn't pump your own gas at gas station pumps, but now you can. So like jobs go away or jobs change, and that's just the nature of the beast. The reality is the job of the researcher is probably not going to be the same. Definitely not anytime soon.
Where do you see the job of the researcher going? What are some of those changes that you are guessing at?
Well, I don't think those are going to be large research teams anymore. My guess, this is just a wild ass educated guess, is that we're going to have a few senior researchers leveraging things that create efficiency like AI or like all of these other tools, putting together stories and helping teams do that. But you don't need teams anymore. You just need one or two senior people to be able to do that. See, the problem with AI is people are like, what's going to replace people? And the reality is it is a force multiplier for people that have sense on when to use it. Yeah, I don't believe you should unleash AI and just let it operate independently and believe everything it churns out. But I do believe that if you give me AI, I can do more work in less time of the same quality that it would be if it were just me without AI.
Yeah, I can see that. And I've been experimenting quite a bit with AI and just playing around with it. And I've done a few little videos on those. I'm not blown away with the results that I'm getting with AI right now.
I would ask you, like, what is what areas are you not blown away with?
Sure. So when it comes to,
And here's why.
yeah,
Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, like, when it comes to research, putting in data points and transcripts and saying, create a report for me, it's synthesizing all the data. It's not bringing out things that I thought it should. And it's surfacing other things that I was like, it's not really that important. I wouldn't bring that up in my findings.
I would agree with you there. And I don't think it's there today, but look how far we've come from the time it started to now. But where I do think it's there is you've done research, you've gathered findings, you've come up with what your conclusions are, you know what you want to say. It can help you better organize that stuff, probably faster than without. A good example is when I write articles or when I write my newsletter, it's my ideas. I write the newsletter, I do it all, but I definitely run it through AI to like copy edit or do things like that, things that would have taken me a long time. I think it's using it in the right context that you need to. There's these interview tools. I wouldn't unleash an AI interview tool unsupervised on anything, but I would absolutely allow it to help pull together other data sources, especially if you're training your model. If your model is trained on your data, it becomes way more powerful. It's very different than being like, I'm going to use Chat GPT for research, then I'm going to use our internal data source, our internal repository for research.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies don't have a trained model or an internal repository that's capable of that sort of thing. I think they're just using, like you said, ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, the universal kind of AI tools to do some of that research.
The question you have to ask, everybody has to ask themselves is, why the fuck are people using it in the first place? And it's because they want to move faster. And say, yes, and there's an absolute race to reduce operating expenses. What they're looking for is what I've been championing for the last fucking year: faster, cheaper, good enough. They're looking for faster, cheaper, good enough. So right now, AI is in that space. The tool companies are in that space. Everything's making it so cheaper is less researchers, but more people doing gathering evidence and putting together stories. I think the key here to remember is that if any tool can help companies, like if we stop and think about what the platinum standard of learning is with customers in a marketplace, the platinum standard of learning is real customers spending real money in real world conditions. The fastest you can get to that level of testing, the better off you are. So it's not about being 100% certain and using AI to get there. It's about being certain enough to meet those three conditions. Now, I would argue, and you asked where research could go in the future, there's a few areas where you're going to need researchers consistently. You need them in durable goods, like things that are like phones or things that when you ship them, you can't claw them back. But software, you can roll that back quickly. Pharmaceuticals, fintech, things that have higher risk of not doing research, sure, they're going to hire researchers. But what I tell you is great. In the great total addressable market of researchers, that's just a little pocket. Like the rest of researchers, why the fuck do we need them? If research tool software companies aren't hiring researchers to do research, are they just not learning? Are they just like, yeah, fuck it, it's not important to learn? Or are they learning a different way that's faster, cheaper, and good enough?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know I have been in roles, Ari, maybe you have too, where you as a researcher, you're really there for to confirm the product owner's idea or hypothesis or whatever it might be. And you kind of teased at this earlier, go out and give me the information I need. And usually that information I need as a PO is that I'm right. And I think that a lot of researchers are put in that position. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that that's absolutely right. Look, if you do research, anybody does research, and you bring back something that confirms what somebody believes, they're like, oh, see, it's the research is right. It confirms me. It's when it doesn't confirm what they believe, they start attacking things like sample size, qualitative versus quantitative, the dreaded statistical significance thing that doesn't even mean statistical significance, all of these things, but they're not really attacking those things. They're saying it does not conform with my beliefs, and therefore I'm not going to believe and support it. And the problem is research has leaned into this role of we either confirm or disconfirm your beliefs, where if they really wanted to add value in that space, it's, oh, you already made a decision? Cool. Let me help you find the information to see if we can make that decision the right decision rather than try to tell you you're wrong. And what ends up happening is people are just going they'll just disregard research when it doesn't do that. What that really is, look, I'm looking for somebody to shift blame if this idea is wrong. I can then say research said, but research isn't always going to be right, and it's not always going to be wrong. It's just another tool.
Yeah, but actually doing research rather than just taking the product owner's idea, actually going out and talking to users could be a little bit more hedging your bets in the right direction and therefore a little bit better than just running with the PO's idea.
100% in some cases, in many cases. But I would also say that researchers love to push back against the idea of those are just assumptions or hypotheses. So let me challenge that for a second. Every company from Apple to IBM to Twilio to whatever started with a founder in a garage coming up with an idea and putting it out into the world. I can tell you that a researcher wasn't in their first 5 hires. So how the fuck did they know what they were doing? It's because they knew something about the market. They learned. When I went to Twitter, I was hired to lead research for their data business. They had a $300 million business and didn't have a researcher. Well, how is that possible? How could a business possibly be successful without hiring a researcher? And it's because we should not totally disregard assumptions or beliefs just because they're assumptions or beliefs. Somebody might know things about their market. It's similar to naturalistic decision making by this psychologist named Gary Klein. It's the reason that fighter pilots or firefighters can make split-second decisions without a checklist that goes through it. They see something, they recognize it. They might not be able to articulate exactly what they're recognizing in that moment. They would later, but they know they could say, a firefighter could say, that roof is about to collapse, or, oh my goodness, this is going to happen. They might not know exactly why. Founders and people who have been in product or design, they develop this over time. It's what experience brings us. It's why you or I, like anybody who could go read every fucking book on research, and they're not going to be a great researcher because they don't have the experience of seeing how people respond to questions, how people talk, like body language, all the little nuanced things that you and I probably can't even fully articulate why we know it. The same thing exists in other disciplines. And to think that, to be dismissive or disregard that, it's insulting. Like for me to tell a founder who's growing their business to like $100 million, oh no, we need to test all of your assumptions, is fucking crazy. Like it's laughable. And no wonder they're like, I don't need you to do that. What I need you to do is we're looking at these things. We're unsure about this, fill in the knowledge gaps. Or, hey, founders, especially in founder-led companies, they have an idea about where they want to go and what they want to do. They're not asking for you to change their fucking direction. They're saying, help make me successful. Find the potholes so I can avoid them. We're going in this direction. This is where we're going. Sure, you can raise things to me and let me know, but I picked the direction. I want to go in that direction. And I think we're dismissive of that. That's why we don't get heard.
I love that, actually. I think that's a fair perspective because I know I've been guilty of, oh, that's an assumption. You don't know that. Let's go investigate. And not allowing some of the things to go with a gut, just go with your gut, right? And see where it goes and maybe learn along the way.
It's possible if you think about decisions as a whole. The reality is I could give you information, extra research, and we could be wrong, or I could give you no research and you could be right. Those two, false positives and false negatives, exist in everything. The only way we know in an open system like the real world if something's going to work is to actually test it with real customers in real world conditions and with real money. If those three conditions don't exist, you're testing, you have a hypothesis, you don't know. And I think that if we don't embrace and accept that, we're right where we are now, which is where research is disregarded. Researchers have just become a tool synonymous with the other tools, and the other tools are doing it faster, cheaper, and good enough.
Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective. I don't disagree. And that idea of researchers being a tool, how did we get here in that category?
I don't think we were solving the right problem. If you think about research, and I've done this for years, I've always tried to develop these mission statements that say what research does. And if you ask 10 different researchers what research is, you're going to get some version of systematic investigation to help people make better decisions faster, which then begs the question, like, what are better decisions? Show me what a better decision is. And what most people, if you say it's profitable, now you're judging the decision based upon the outcome, which we just said, the outcome and the decision are decoupled. You could have a profitable decision that was a shitty decision, like it just was luck. That happened. And so if we say we deliver decisions, but we don't, you said it right. We deliver confidence. We are confidence people. Like I'm giving you something that gives you confidence that you're not going to look stupid. You're not going to lose your job. Your boss thinks you're intelligent. You're shipping something. You're not going to end up with people pointing at you for the mistake. We have not thought about research as what it actually delivers. And to this day, I don't know what it delivers. I don't know. And I think that's the problem. And because I don't know what a better decision is anymore. I don't know if it's more information. If you say it's gathering more evidence, companies don't need more evidence. We have marketing analytics, product analytics. You have customer conversations with sales teams, customer success tickets, tribal knowledge, assumptions. You have all sorts of stuff. If every researcher believes in like psychology and behavioral economics or idea of choice overload, by getting more data, are we just giving people choice overload? There's all these problems that I don't know what research does, but I can tell you as a founder, as somebody who is starting small businesses right now, hiring a researcher is not even a thought because why? How I test products or services is with real customers in real world conditions, spending real money. I even do observations that way. I would rather see behavioral data, which you can get at lightning speed now, by the way, than other data. Now, I'm not totally dismissing interviews. I'm not. And I'm not dismissing the art of research. What I'm suggesting, though, is we're not successful because we don't know what do we deliver. I would really need to know, because if you're saying like we delivered a UX, like stuff that helps make design decisions better. That's a very different thing than delivering stuff for business strategy, probably. I just don't think we know what we deliver. And without knowing what we deliver, we're just shipping shit. And when you
Yeah.
ship shit, you're shipping outputs, not outcomes. And as soon as you start talking about outcomes, my question to you would be same thing I asked this a researcher a while ago. She couldn't give me a good answer. Is you're shipping things. How do you know that the work you're doing is leading to those outcomes? How do you attribute that? And researchers will come up with all these bullshit statistics from all these tool companies that put them out that say for every dollar spent on research, you get $3 gain. If CEOs fucking believe that, they would spend money on research. They don't believe it.
Yeah.
If I told you, hey, Jen, for every dollar you give me, I'm going to give you 3, you would find a way to give me a lot of dollars.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I think
They don't believe.
I get it. And it's this problem I've had in a lot of places where it's like, show the value of UX. And you're touching upon that, right? How? I think every place has a different definition of what that value could be.
Yeah, and they'll use outlier companies and they'll use outlier people. And the reality is businesses make deliberate decisions about their user experience. Let's use an example outside of AI that has existed for lots of years. Jen, I want you to tell me the last time you talked to an automated phone system that you found fucking delightful.
Oh, delightful.
You called into a bank and you were like, oh, this bank's automated system is amazing.
I was just on a phone system this morning, and that's the last fucking thing I was thinking. It was not delight. It was not making sense. And yeah, delight?
Awful.
Never.
Okay. So automated phone systems from the CEO down, everybody would say, ugh. In fact, the CEOs have their fucking executive assistant doing it because they don't want to do it. Okay. So if phone systems are a bad user experience, notice I'm not even talking about visual design right now. I'm talking about customer user experience. Why the fuck do companies do it? If delightful experiences, it's because they've made a deliberate decision to forego a great experience to reduce operating expenses.
Yeah.
Let's say it and accept the fact that not every company wants delight in everything they do. And this is why these AI agents are so concerning to people. Is I don't even want to get into the debate about are AI agents going to replace people or not, because I don't think that's the right question either, because phone systems have been doing this for a long time. Okay, so an AI agent can't do it as good as a customer service representative. No shit, we've known that for years.
Yeah.
You're not like giving me some new information, but they're making deliberate decisions. Twilio is an example, and I don't even hate them for this. Other companies do this too, where there are steps that you have to go through to get accounts that are compliance related. They're not a delightful experience, but they're necessary to protect Twilio and protect you. I understand that. Now, can UX work to make them better? Sure. But why would a company make those better if they don't lead to profitability? Like, why are we asking about creating better experiences without knowing what at least correlate that to some level of satisfaction and satisfaction of revenue? This is the fundamental problem with all of these industries right now, is that nobody will say this stuff because they're afraid. They're afraid of saying, okay, by saying this, am I like cutting the legs out from UX? Well, by not addressing it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. By not saying it doesn't mean that it's invisible. It's there. So let's address it.
And by what specifically do you mean?
Address these concerns and issues. Address the fact that, okay, your attribution models for UX are bullshit. They're all from fucking tool companies or market research reports that do exactly what the fuck researchers don't like. It made a point and it found data to support the point. It's not like independently we did this major global study and we came to this realization. It was like, no, I want you to prove to me that UX is profitable. And so it found data that said UX is profitable. You want me to find data to show you something's profitable? I'll find that too. You want me to show you data that's not? We can do that all day long. It's just not a very scientific thing. And as soon as we can accept the fact that, like, hey, we're making trade-offs on everything we do, then that's a thing. And recognizing that businesses don't give a shit about people. They care about their customers because they want profitability. But like, businesses are profit, they're machines. And all the people are things that make the machine work. That's it. It's that simple. And we don't like it. And companies do whatever they can to make that you feel less robotic and machine-like. But like, pet names and swag and welcome kit and onboarding and all sorts of fun shit. It's all bullshit. It's all propaganda, and it's all designed to make you feel like you're not part of a machine, that you're part of some kind of air quote family that doesn't really exist. Because let me tell you what you don't do to a family member. You don't send them an email to their private email to they lay them off after 2 years and 7 months of service without a conversation or something else.
Yeah.
That's not a human way of people.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole idea of corporate being family, well, I have been squashing that for a very long time. And that is a perfect example why that's bullshit.
It's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. And companies, like, you could say, I used to use the analogy, don't think of it as a family. It's like a sports team. Well, you can't even really think of it as a sports team. And here's why I have problems with that analogy. In a sports team, you're going to keep star players and you're going to get rid of not star players. Maybe some companies do that, but not all do. You're a line item on a spreadsheet. Oh, we need to reduce, and so we'll reduce this person. Right? They might not even know my name. Or, you know what? It's behind a black box. Maybe they did know who they were reducing and they did it for some other reason. The problem is that the power dynamic is not in the favor of the worker. It's in the favor of the business. So to get your severance, you have to do it exactly what they say, or you have to get a lawyer. And to get a lawyer is not a cheap thing. You don't like just go get one at the store. You have to get a lawyer to do something like that. It's going to cost you about $5,000, and you might not even win. And your severance is going to be delayed during that time. So if you haven't saved up money, you're really fucked.
Yeah.
It's not, the power dynamic is not fair.
Yeah, that's
What
true.
should happen, and companies aren't going to self-correct. I don't love a lot of government regulation overall, but in this particular case, companies are not going to do the right thing. And the reality is this: companies should be penalized for laying people off. And by penalized, I'm not saying let's fine them. I'm saying that you hired people, you made that direct decision to do that. If you lay people off, you're on the hook for a year. You pay their salary for a year, regardless. And it's every company. I don't care if you chose to hire people and you lay them off, you're on the hook for a year, rather than giving me some bullshit. You pay some bullshit unemployment tax that doesn't even cover my mortgage. Then they've got some skin in the game here. Other countries do shit like this. America doesn't. And so companies are just like, oh, well, we'll just send out a warn notice and lay off 13,000 people. Well, now 13,000 people are without a job. Some are going to have money in the bank, others won't. And most are not going to speak out like I do.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't know, Ari, do you think that it has always been this way? Just feels ruthless. I'll just throw that word out there. Companies doing these layoffs, do you feel like it's always been that way, or is it just worse now?
I think companies have always acted this way. I think it's worse now because of all of the things we're seeing. The AI movement, I think you hit it on the head. People are like, AI. And what it really is, wait a second, we found a way that's new, a new toy that can reduce operating expenses. So let's play with this and see if we can reduce operating expenses. So we're seeing companies do this. And those that say it like that are rolling it back, they're not fully going to roll it back. They're just going to look for another way to make this work for them. I think companies have always been this way, but when things are in abundance, like they were 4 or 5 years ago, and companies were hiring, we didn't feel it because we were the benefactors of it. The worker was like, these companies at that point were like, we need great talent. To get great talent, we have to pay better. We have to do sign-on bonuses. We have to have fucking ping pong tables and kombucha and all sorts of shit that they threw at workers to get workers there. Notice that as soon as they didn't have to do that anymore, all that stopped. Salaries dropped. Now it is absolutely it is the buyers, or is it a buyer's market or so? It's their market. They control, they're in full on control, which is why they don't give a shit if they ghost you. This is remarkable to me. I worked at Twilio and I while I was there, and we were hiring for a role, right? So I was hiring for a role, and I referred several people there, and or they were hiring for a UX role, and I referred people there, and they got automated rejections. And I reached out to human resources and I said, look, if I refer somebody to you, I expect somebody to have a conversation with them. You don't have to hire them. I'll stay out of the process. I want it to be what you need it to be. But you're going to show me and them the respect, or I'm just not going to refer people here. I have now applied for jobs at companies where people work, like all over the country, where I've been referred by internal candidates and I get automated rejections. Like, that's gross. That's
Yeah,
fucking gross.
it is.
And shame on talent acquisition for that. Like, shame on HR for that.
Yeah. And
So,
along the same
yeah,
lines are these companies that this gets it makes my blood boil. Companies that lay off people and say they're low performers. How fucked up is that?
it's a cloaked bullshit excuse. If they were such a low performer, then like begs a few questions. Like the first question I have is, wait a second, they're a low performer. What has the manager done to fix that? Have you guys done corrective stuff? Have you tried to coach them? Is it the environment one where they've laid people off every quarter for the last year? Is it an environment they've had 5 bosses in 2 years and 7 months? I never got a less than meet standard review at Twilio ever. And I say that because I think it's important to know that these companies, they'll use whatever excuse they have because they can fire people for any reason if you're in an at will state, as
Yeah,
long as it's not an illegal reason, meaning that we're firing Ari because he's over 50 years old. That's illegal and
right.
an illegal reason. So they'll yeah, it's gross, it's despicable. Like, it's if why is the leadership and management not being held accountable for those things? What have you done to increase productivity? What's really fucking funny is that when they do that and then they rehire new people like overseas or something, so it wasn't really that, it was we're saving money.
Yeah. And it's a double stab, right? I saw people who were like, I got exceptional reviews, like what you were talking about. I am not a low performer, but it is a double stab because not only are you getting laid off, but the company is saying everyone we laid off in this round is a low performer. So what's the next employer going to do? They're going to assume you're a low performer and it decreases your opportunities to get a new job.
Yeah, I think, look, the reality is this, and this kind of comes full circle to a post I made recently that I'm sure you're aware of, is that if you operate in a world where you work for an employer, you are a company in and of yourself. You're just trusting your entire income stream to one business. It's really dangerous. And it's because of what you said. Like, one person can cut that off and you're done. Right now, the market is such that I'm interviewing for roles that, like, I'm telling you, I've been told several times, you're overqualified for the role. Well, yeah, that's really hard. I had an interview recently where a manager was asking me, what kind of professional development do you want over the next, like, how do you want to grow in the next year? Now, I can learn something from anybody, but to ask me that question when I was in your boss's role like a few months ago, it's it's not a great vibe. And it's a really hard question for me to answer. Like, how are you going to help me grow? I don't know. How are you going to teach? You're asking me how you're going to teach me to grow as a researcher when I'm applying for a role that's the role I had when I started in research, senior researcher roles.
Right. Well, they should have changed up that question a little bit. That sounds like pretty boilerplate question. When
It's exactly what's happening. This is what people are confronted with today. And I feel awful for these people that have been applying for jobs for 2 years or for 18 months, and they're running into the same stuff that I'm running into. If I send out 100 applications this week, I'm going to get zero response from 90 of them. I'm going to get rejections from 9, and I might get one phone screener interview. Might. I think that number is even smaller. It is the worst hiring market I've ever seen.
Yeah,
But I would be researching.
I'm seeing so much sentiment about that. Just different folks on LinkedIn posting like, "Look, I gave it a good run. I've been looking for a year, 2 years in UX, right? And I'm out. I'm giving up." Do you think UX is over as a career aspiration?
I don't know that it's when you say over, do I think that the same opportunities are going to exist for people in UX research, UX product that they do today? No. No. Do I think those roles will continue to like exist in some form in the future? I do. I couldn't tell. I don't think anybody could tell us exactly how that's going to look, but I do know that if you're dependent on working a six-figure UX job for your future, you should start thinking about other options. Like I
Yeah.
would hate for somebody like let's learn from all of those that have been doing this before us. Look, people can say it's a different market. I see all sorts of fucking ridiculous advice about networking and all this other stuff, which just makes me absolutely crazy because I did network. I've reached out to everybody in my network. They've referred me to jobs internally, and I still have the same result. The same resume that I used 3 years ago to get multiple offers is the same resume I'm using now. I'm applying within 24 hours. I'm using all the fucking tricks that everybody says, same result. So sure, are some people getting jobs? Sure, I'm sure that exists, but I would argue let's not confuse outliers for the majority. Um, I think that if you're the tech industry as a whole, we are not done seeing what the impacts of what's happening with AI technology is having on the market. We're also not seeing the full impact of reductions in operating expenses, uncertainty in the markets, all this back and forth with tariffs, all of this stuff is contributing to what is happening today.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think AI is a good scapegoat because everybody's talking about it, right? And it's the thing to point to. AI is taking our job. But there are a lot of other factors that are at play.
100%. In fact, like AI, sure, AI is definitely impacting things, but as I've illustrated with research, the research tool companies started this a long time ago. What happened is research tool companies started competing with the researchers. And as soon as that happened, researcher was just another tool in the toolbox. Because once a product manager or a designer can get the evidence they need to give them confidence without a researcher, like why that's faster, cheaper, and good enough, why wouldn't you use it? Same is gonna happen with UX. Look, I built a new logo for my logo and information and figuring out direction for a new business I'm doing. I'll tell you, did AI get me the full logo? No. Did it get me 80% there so that somebody else that knew design well enough could take what was in my head and modify it? Yeah. So like, dude, designers on Fiverr and Upwork and shit, go find another job. You guys are fucked. It's over. That game's over. That game's over.
Yeah, I keep saying when it comes to UX and when it comes to designers, this is my prediction and it's not popular. People who are creating design systems, that's going to be the first to go. Because if a person can just type in a prompt saying, design me a page doing this and this, and let's say it's Figma, right? Figma has almost everybody's designs in the world in their system. So you can create a design system in the future, my prediction, by just typing in a prompt. I need a full page. We're a financial company, this font, this color, spit it out. There will not be a need for human beings to create design systems. That's my guess.
Agree. I think you're right. I think that's absolutely accurate. I don't think that AI is going to replace all engineers. I don't think that's possible yet. I can't speak far into the future, but right now, AI code is not as good as developer code. AI design is not as good as designer design. But if it can take a great designer and get them started so that they can finish something in 50% of the time, that becomes interesting because businesses can reduce operating expenses. And businesses care about one thing and one thing only: profitability. They want to be profitable and grow. That's it. And everything else that they do is a function, is to drive into that. How do I grow the business with the biggest profit margin possible? Those two things are what they want. So to your point, all these, any job where you could take somebody who is really good and make them do more really good things. Any tool that does that is very dangerous to the masses.
Yeah.
And if AI can help a next level engineer do more next level engineering than non next level engineers, yeah, they should be nervous.
Yeah. I agree with you on the coding aspect. AI is improving. I've been a designer for a long time. I'm not a designer anymore, but that was my background. I used to have to go to iStock or Getty Images and pay hundreds of dollars for an image or create it myself with Photoshop, right? I don't have to do that now. I can type it into some kind of AI image generator like Firefly. It's not perfect, but I can use that and spit out an image in seconds for free.
And you could take that image, move it over to a design tool, and fix the parts of it that you don't like, whether it's text or something else. Like those tools can take images that you have of like your dog or something and do comic like illustrations. Dude, it goes back. It might not get you 100% of the way there, but I think that anybody who says that I'm using AI 100% of the time, yeah, of course, it's not gonna, like people who would say it in content creation on LinkedIn and stuff. They're like, oh, I can't replace content creation. Okay, yeah, you're right. The fucking idiot that gets AI to write their post and just posts it or the comments, yeah, everybody sees through that. But using AI to help refine an idea and stuff, if it can make me write 10 posts in the time that it would take me to write one, why wouldn't I do that? And all these fucking ridiculous M dash Nazis and all that stuff, it's ridiculous. I like trying to. Here's my thing about this. One level upstream from that. If you read something and you love what you read, you love what you read. Do you give a shit how it was done? Like, I don't care if I eat the most amazing slice of New York pizza. Do I care if AI made it?
Right? That's fair.
And lots of people used N dashes and other dashes before AI came into the equation. I do believe that you should not use AI as the tool to write all your ideas out.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, it has helped refine a lot of ideas and thinking that I've had. It helps me think through things. It makes me faster and better at the things I'm already good at.
I agree with that. It gives you additional ideas. I've used it for writing scripts for YouTube videos. And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. That's a good insertion. I'm rewriting a good part of it, but it gave me some content that I was like, okay, I'm going to run with that. But I'm going to also run with what I had in mind and bring the two together.
100%. It's going to give you, you're still using your voice. Look, I write a very specific way, but what's the difference if it helps or if a ghostwriter helps? Why aren't people fucking railing on ghostwriters? Like ghostwriter, oh, a ghostwriter wrote this. If you enjoy what you're reading and you're getting value out of it, what do I care if a ghostwriter wrote it? There's a brilliant writer. His newsletter is fantastic. His name is Cole Schaefer. His business is called Honey Copy. I read his newsletter every week. There's no doubt in my mind he writes it. I like his style. And if something else could write in his style that he's trained on his voice and his model, dude, he's just a brilliant writer. I'm sure he's editing. He does not use it. There's no way he uses stuff, but it's about the value and enjoyment you get out of something.
And you know what? He might use it in the future. If he's got a lot of content to train the model on his tone and voice and his approach to writing, he might use it in the future and just sell his content.
I believe that I don't like the idea of it replacing people's thinking or other stuff. But the reality is, if it helps you form your ideas faster and better, I think AI is the people who are most afraid of it replacing them. They're not in the top 1%.
Yeah, that's fair. And they probably relied on mediocre behavior and work ethic for a long time. And they're afraid they're going to get flushed out.
I think that it's like one of those things where if I think knowledge workers are the ones that are in the most trouble right now. So like, I would consider like UX, product. I don't know if product has fully felt this yet, but like product management tasks that are automated and largely just like moving tickets through Jira. I don't know why you couldn't just use tools to do that too. I just don't see right now we're going through this renaissance of or disruption of looking for ways to reduce operating expenses through efficiency. And AI just happens to be the vehicle that's getting attention now. For research, this has been happening for a while. We just didn't see it.
Yeah. I will say, even a particular tool I use for unmoderated interviews or testing or whatnot, transcripts used to be trash. They were unreliable. I'm like, can't even fucking look at that because it didn't do a job at all. Recently, conducted a round of interviews and transcripts were spot on. In fact, somebody had a heavy accent and I couldn't understand what they said, but the transcript did and picked it up. And I probably would have had to trash that interview because I would have struggled so much with what that person said. But having the transcript there and reading what they said along with their voice, it's come a long way.
It's remarkable how far that has come in the last few years.
Yeah.
And it's also remarkable how good AI is at summarizing certain things now too. Um, it's it goes back to what I'm saying. Like if a researcher is just another tool that collects that stuff, there are other ways to collect that data and evidence that are faster, cheaper, and good enough. I would tell people that to start hedging their bets. I wouldn't I don't think anybody in any company anywhere is safe anymore. Like when you see companies like Google or Microsoft or Amazon laying people off, these companies print money. Twilio has like hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank. Like it's in the bank. So like when you lay people off and you have money to pay them because you don't see the value, like businesses pay for shit they value. Businesses will pay for shit they value. So by eliminating my position, they did not value my position, regardless, whether I like that or not, whether I agree with it or not. They did not see the value in my position. And they will continue. Companies that are doing this, that's what they're doing. They don't value the roles in their current state and form or for the price that they're paying. So if you're moving roles offshore, maybe you value the role, you just don't value what you're paying for it.
Right. Right. I read recently one of the leaders of one of the AI companies, I can't recall which one it was, their prediction was that 80% of white collar roles will be eliminated within 5 years. What are your thoughts on that?
Scary. That's a scary prediction. I think I'd be curious to see how that would man when you think about all the white collar roles. Like we're talking about lawyers. I think that number seems awfully high.
Yeah.
That said, even if that number was 20%, that is still really significant. And I think we're going to see it a lot in the tech space. Like I think when it comes to software development and building software or building or continuing to evolve software, I think you're going to see that contraction continue. And I think you're going to see a revamping of several roles. Like when I say the role of researcher is going to go away, what I think is most likely is going to happen is that the role of researcher is going to fall back on product managers and designers to use tools to do that function, like the typing pool. The typing pool used to exist to do that function, and then it fell to word processors, and they expected everybody to learn how to use word processors. Same idea. So I do believe we're going to continue to see a contraction.
Yeah, I think so too. And so you said earlier, Ari, that we shouldn't really be relying on a company, a corporation, as our only business or our only means, right? So, what kind of side hustle gigs should we be cooking up in the meantime?
Love it. So if you remember, like it was, man, maybe it was a few years ago, or maybe less, there was this idea of the quiet quitting movement. And quiet quitting was basically workers are going to do exactly what the job description requires, nothing more, nothing less, as like as passive resistance to the system we're talking about. But the problem is that's not enough. Like just doing that is not enough. What I think you should drive toward is this idea of, I call it loud leaving. And loud leaving is the idea of creating alternative income streams, developing skills that transcend what you're currently doing, and really detaching yourself from the illusion of corporate security. Because I'm sure as I sit here, it's an illusion. Corporate security doesn't exist. There are things you can do today to build this. So I believe in building a portfolio of micro businesses so you're no longer a slave to this. You're not shackled to the companies or shackled to corporate America. And I think it depends on each individual, but there are things that people really like to do. Like some people, here's a great example. It's one of my favorites, and I find it to be it's a great business model. One is, if you like baking bread, bake bread and sell it at farmers markets. It always sells. Like every farmers market I go to, the bread line's always big. They always run out of bread, things like that. And there are a few rules that I would tell people that I follow as I'm building my portfolio of micro businesses. Okay. I believe in starting small. Okay. Don't go out and spend $100,000 on a new business tomorrow. Start small, validate it with real customers, spending real money in real world conditions. Two, my rule, it doesn't have to be your rule, it doesn't have to be somebody else's rule, is I don't invest in technology first companies. I believe in niches or niches, depending on how you want to pronounce it, that are product or service based and not SaaS. Three, I like businesses that have a higher barrier to entry. So landscaping does not have a high barrier to entry. Anybody can go up to Lowe's or Home Depot, buy a lawnmower, start mowing lawns. Dog shit removal, like lawn dog shit removal services in my community, not a high barrier to entry. Anybody can enter. I like looking for things that would be a little harder to get into, but that's not to say if somebody was like, Ari, I need a business next weekend, what would I do? I would go with dog shit removal. That's such an easy business to start. And then look for compounding gains, meaning that there are efficiencies and opportunities. So let's say you were going to sell bread at a farmer's market. Maybe your second business, like your second micro business, would be selling crocheting at a farmer's market. Why? Because you're already at the farmer's market, but now you have two businesses in the same place, two revenue streams coming in. You are already there. So it's an efficiency. If you follow those rules, you're pretty safe. What kinds of businesses? Here's some right off the top. Let's say you're like, oh, I need to start a business and I only want to spend $1,500. Go to Home Depot, spend $1,000 on a power washer, $300 on there's special driveway cleaners, and go clean driveways. There's dog shit removal is a great one. Trash can cleaning. Like these are all service-based businesses that anybody could do by doing that. You could, if you wanted to do really service-based businesses, help local accountants, lawyers, whatever, with marketing, like blanketing with flyers. They say, hey, I'll blanket neighborhoods with flyers for you, $500 a day. Boom. Now you've got a business. All you're going to do is go get exercise, walking around, putting flyers indoors. Notice how like opportunities are endless. Here's what's fun. Use Chat GPT or AI to come up with business ideas. Give them the rules that I just gave you. Say, I want you to help me set up these. Give me 20 ideas, and it'll spit out 20 ideas with the startup costs and every way to do it. The trick here is you start and then you build one. And if, let's say, you try it and it doesn't work, shut it down, a new one. Once you find an idea that works, then there are some back end things you need to do. For example, if you're going to start a bunch of micro businesses, you want to have different bank accounts for each of them. For tax reasons, but you should talk to a tax professional. I'm not a lawyer or a tax professional, but having separate EINs or taxpayer identification numbers, different names, different things. Don't start with that. Here's how people start generally. I this isn't even a guess. I know exactly how they start. They get online, they find a fucking logo, and they spend a lot of time building a logo, and then they'll go find the domain name, and then they'll go find all the shit, and then they'll build a website. They build all this infrastructure, and then they ship the idea, and it falls flat, and then it didn't work, and they do all that again. And so they're spending 90% of their time building shit that isn't leading toward their first sale. Everything you do should lead toward your first sale. And once you do your first sale, then you start worrying about scaling those systems and all that other shit. Most people don't do that. They do it backwards. And that's why they end up in this endless cycle of like, I can't make this work. Everything you do should lead toward your first sale. Everything you do.
Yeah, I think it's true. I did take a long time creating my logo, but not as long as most.
Me
I come
too.
from a designer background, so I actually whipped it out pretty quickly. But it was one of the first things that I did. Ari, what? I mean, I'm gonna be frank. Starting a business is scary, and there's a lot to learn. So I feel like I would get caught up in the minutia of the EIN and the LLC and the legal and the website, and I would probably do that too.
Yeah, and you should definitely do that stuff once you've made your first sale. My favorite part of making businesses is coming up with the names. I love coming up with catchy, funny, punny names. Yeah, I just love it. And then I like to find the domain names, and then I buy the domain name, and then I'm okay, now what? And the reality is find the niche you want to do. And then a good way to start it is go today. What everybody could do is go to your Secretary of State within your state, their website, start an LLC under your name. Like just your LLC, it's your name. So yours is Jen Blatz, mine will be Ari Zelmanow. I already have that. And then what you can do, because then you have a business and it can be a consulting or service-based business. And that business can be what you can use that, set up a Stripe account, set up all the things that you'd be able to do to collect a payment. You're not looking to scale the business under your name. You're looking like it's a validation business. All I do is validate business ideas. And then what you'll do is, okay, let's say I'm going to use my leaflet plastering idea for a second. Get in touch with some businesses. Say, hey, I offer as a designer, Jen, I'll design your flyers for you. I'll get them printed and I'll distribute them to neighborhoods that fit your needs. You can use ChatGPT to help you find the neighborhoods around the zip codes that would be good for that business. You can then bring that to them and say, hey, these are the highest earning income areas. These are the ones we should flyer. $500. We'll do a week's worth of flyers for 500. Not a week's worth, but like we'll do 500 flyers, $500. Go walk the neighborhood. If they buy it, now you found something. Now let's say somebody's like, or that just scares the hell out of me. I don't know where starting there is too much. That's too much. Okay, cool. What I want you to do is go to Facebook Marketplace. In the little search bar, type in businesses for sale, and find a business. They're there. You can find them anywhere from a couple $100 all the way up to a couple $100,000. What I would tell you as a rule, my micro business rule for those starting out is start with businesses that are less than $10,000. Here's why. You can easily get sucked into stuff. So like people will see food trucks and they'll be like, wait a second, I could start a food truck for $30,000. I'm going to be a millionaire. Why I do micro businesses is this. As I said, in corporate America, we're going to come back to the food truck example in a second to illustrate why this works. In corporate America, you have one income paying for everything. When you do micro businesses, you can own 3 to 5 micro businesses that each make $30,000 to $50,000. If one of those businesses tanks, you still have 4 going. So your income is still coming while you're figuring out the next thing. What becomes really interesting is start a micro business, run it for 2 years, and I tell you, I promise you, you'll be able to sell it. People will buy it because of exactly what you said. I don't feel comfortable starting my own. I want some help. If a business that you start hits a home run, you can make a decision about that. If a business starts doing that. Now, with things like food trucks or other things that seem like a good deal where they're $30,000 to $50,000, the problem is food trucks are generally lower margin things, even though it seems like they wouldn't be. There's food costs, labor costs, other things. To take home $100,000 on a food truck, you'd probably, and you have to be a very efficient food truck that made $300,000 a year. And $300,000 a year on a food truck is like a very busy, well-run oiled machine. The other thing to consider and why micro businesses matter is when you work for an employer, you pay your employer pays your social security tax. When you work for yourself, they don't, which means you're on the hook for those too. It's not a scary thing if you're not fully dependent on, it's a lot of pressure to put on yourself and your business to say, I need my business to make $250,000 a year. That's a lot of pressure for a business. It is not a lot of pressure for a business to make $20,000 a year. I'll give you an example. I own a craft candle company. Everybody should go to it. It's tantriccandle.com. That's tantriccandle.com. We own a craft candle. I'd be funny. It's a double entendre, sexual innuendo candle business. It's where one of the things that came up with my micro business idea. That business does between $12,000 and $25,000 a year. And it's on Etsy. Start a business, you put it on Etsy, you go to farmers markets, you try to sell it, you see what works, what doesn't. You do more of the things that work, less of the things that don't. I'm going to be posting a lot more about this on LinkedIn because I'm not going to be writing about research anymore. And I'm going to write about this on my newsletter so that if people have questions, I'll take them through the journey on how I did it and the things I thought about and the things that you need to do in the order you need to do it. If people have questions about this, shoot them to me. I'll answer them. Don't fucking pay for people to do this. Don't pay for those bullshit resume services and all that other stuff unless you really want a corporate job, in which case, have at it. Definitely don't pay for these fancy headhunter things unless it's working for you. This is the path, I think. For me, it's the path for me.
Yeah. So, Ari, sounds like you're talking about micro businesses in an analog world. You're not talking digital so much.
For me, no digital. I did consulting for a long time in the product and UX space. And let me put my money where my mouth is. People that follow me know that I taught a course on Maven. I won't teach that course anymore. And it was profitable. I'll show you the numbers. I made money on my course. I won't teach it anymore because I don't know where things are going and I can't sell something that I don't fully believe in. If you're a developer or you're a designer and you want to sell more digital stuff, cool, do it. But treat it like a micro business. The takeaway I would tell you is don't think about I have to scale a business to $250,000. Say, I'll build several part-time businesses to $30,000 to $50,000. So I have diversification. If you're a research consultant right now, you are probably shitting your pants based upon what you're seeing in the market. I'm not doing it anymore. I will not consult on research anymore. Won't do it. Won't take a dollar. I don't know where things are going. I don't feel confident at all about that industry. So yeah, I'm focusing on the analog space because that's where I'm getting enjoyment. But you could focus on anything you want to focus on. Those 4 rules are mine. Your rules could be totally different.
Yeah, that's fair. So, Ari, what do you think is the future for UX, if anything?
I don't think the user experience is going to fully die. I think that companies do care about creating experiences. I would also, and this is probably a whole separate conversation, companies think UX is digital design, like digital, it's visual design. That's what they think it is.
Yeah.
I think that UX will continue to exist in some way, shape, or form. I would be a little more worried if I was a visual designer. I think AI is going to fucking really hurt you.
Yeah.
But I think there's going to be a place. I just think you're going to see a contraction. I think that these roles, it could happen that the role of product falls under one umbrella now. It's just product manager who uses AI design tools, who uses research tools, comes up with something, and through iteration with an engineering team, builds the thing, ships it to real customers in real money and real world conditions, and gets it out into the world. I expect all of these to contract.
Yeah, I don't want that to happen, but I have been in situations where I was working with a product owner who was at a startup, right? And he would do the designs and he would do a vapor test as his research. Let's put up a page. Let's see if there's interest here in this product. And it just blew my mind. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm like, oh my God, what? But maybe they were successful and acquired by a large company. So they might not have been all wrong, but especially if it's AI and just you give it a prompt, design this thing, if that's the technology is going to take over for those roles, that might be the way things go.
Yeah, and make no mistake about it. Tools like Figma and Canva and others are looking at ways to make it easier for design. Look, it goes back to this. Some untrained person with no design experience with AI is not going to be nearly as powerful as a senior level designer with AI. My point is that, okay, yeah, is it going to fully go away? I'd like to think no. But where you had a design team of 5 before, could you do that with 1 and AI? Until we answer that question, I don't know. And the problem is we like to answer the question with what we know today. And you can't do that. We have to do with what we know tomorrow. And we don't know tomorrow, but we do know the AI of 18 months ago is nowhere near what the AI is of today. And
Yeah,
the AI 18 months of now is, if we continue to go in this direction, it's probably going to get better.
I agree. It is. It's going to take over and improve things that we can't even predict yet.
Not even close. And so my argument to everybody would be this: hedge your bets. I'm not saying quit your job. Please don't quit your job tomorrow and try this micro business idea. Please don't. In fact, the best time to start a micro business is while you're employed. That's the single best time. There's not a lot of pressure. But what I am saying is, if you continue to depend on a corporate environment to be your sole source of income, it is a lot of pressure for you when that income goes away. And no company is insulated from layoffs. Nothing. And no company, I don't care how much a CEO loves you, no company is going to be like, we're going to just be benevolent and keep everybody on because we want to, especially if they're publicly traded.
Yeah, I grew up in the Midwest and there were a lot of auto manufacturers around. And those shut down when I was a child. And there were people who worked there for decades and never learned another skill, never did anything else. And when they moved those factories overseas to lower wage areas, they lost their job. And some people were like, whoa, how am I paying for my house now? And how am I paying for my boat now? And all these things they bought. And I think that industry, the automobile industry, building the cars in the United States, that's an example of what happened with people losing their jobs. And I think we could be the new automobile manufacturing industry.
And they didn't think it was going to happen to them. And so I
Oh,
think that
yeah.
makes a good point. And to make your point even more real to those in tech right now, last week I was sitting at home, doorbell rang, my wife went to the door. She came back a few minutes later with a flyer for painting services. The guy delivering the flyer had just been laid off from Google. So this was a Google employee who was he helped plan their big corporate events, not like banquets, but Nelly's going to sing at such thing. He planned those types of things. He was there for 17 years. 17 years, and he was laid off from Google. So if somebody was 17 years, and that's the loyalty the company shows, our loyalty ends on the time clock. Okay, I clock in the morning. You've got my time, attention, effort during the day. 5 o'clock, that ends. I'm going to do my other thing. And you could start a micro business on 1, 2 days a week and just do it. In fact, I have a friend of mine who's doing that with a soap company right now. He's trying to see if he can get a soap company. So he's following the steps. He's put it up on Etsy. He's validating it with real customers, spending real money in real world conditions. And as he's learning, he's scaling. Don't scale before you learn, then scale. And you know what? I don't know how either of us could be successful. We haven't hired a researcher yet. I'm being facetious because the research is we're doing it with real customers in real world conditions with real money. If anybody is listening and they're like, if you are listening and you want to learn without going to ChatGPT, all you have to do is get online, find out when the next flea market or farmer's market is, go. You don't have to talk to anybody, just watch. You will see what sells and what doesn't. Do it. Just fucking do it.
Yeah, I think that, wow, there's a lot of truth bombs coming out today, Ari, for sure. It's really got me thinking. I've never held faith in corporate America or ever felt that I was in a safe position to where I could just kick back and I'm indispensable. I've never, ever felt that. I've seen too many people around me that I thought was indispensable be let go. So I'm like, reality check right there. It's the same as in investments, right? You don't put all your eggs in one basket, is I think ultimately what you're saying here.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Not all your eggs in one basket. Try some other things, expand out. If I think the less good version of this would be like contract. If you were looking for work right now, doing several different small part-time contracts instead of one big contract that you're fully dependent on. But yeah, I think to me the answer is build your own thing. You have to change the way you're going to have to operate a little bit, but even going from corporate job to another corporate job, it does solve the problem short term. But if you believe for a moment that we're in this contraction, you're not safe forever. And the best time to start doing it is today.
Yeah. Foolproof your future, right?
That's it. That is it.
Yeah. I think that's really, really interesting because before, let's say 5 years ago, we didn't have a tool like ChatGPT to help us brainstorm what can I do next? Right? And now we do. Try it out and see what it says. And you could be like, oh my God, I would never make pizza because I don't cook. You just tell it you don't cook it, it can come up with a whole new storm of ideas.
We'll come up with all sorts of great stuff. And the reality is that the best idea is the one that people are going to want to buy and pay for. And so part of this is experimentation and doing. And the reality is for those researchers that are like, I'm thinking about leaving research and going into something else. Once I got laid off, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? So I looked at product marketing. I think product marketing is they're at major risk of being disrupted from all of this. And the reality is I use product marketing as the example here, but I don't think that any role in a tech company is insulated from this.
I agree. Especially if you were like you were talking about, if they're looking at a spreadsheet, line item, this person, don't know anything about them, they make this much. Do we need 5 of them? I don't know. Cut number 2, dude. I mean, these are how decisions are made.
I think that's how they're made.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Ari, we talked about a whole bunch of stuff, and I just wanted to give you the opportunity. Was there anything that we didn't touch upon today that you'd like to share?
No, I think this was cool, man. We talked about, I think, loud leaving. We talked about the state of research and UX. I think that's great. I think the takeaway for people is I am not just saying this stuff. I've changed my LinkedIn profile. I'm not focused on research at all anymore. I am loud leaving into the world of analog products and services. I will absolutely share my journey and I will help others that want to do similar things. But I'm not selling no services to do that. Like, I'm doing it. So that's it.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing your journey because I think it can be a little, I don't want to say overwhelming. I've been this kind of person, this kind of role in tech or whatever it might be for so long. I don't know how to go to a completely different side. And for you to share your journey, your struggles, your pivots, it's early days, you might have some pivots eventually, to show that is a normal part of the process and not just the end rainbow success, right?
I think people need to, that, I think that's one of the things that I'm glad you have me on today is I want people to know that other people are going through what they're going through. Very like when I got laid off, my first thing was like, I've had peaks and valleys, very dark times, very bright times. That's all normal and part of the process. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you for sharing. I know that it's inspirational for me because I know it can be very scary to be laid off. I've been there, and to pick yourself up and be like, you know what? I'm not jumping into my next corporate gig. I'm going on this path and let's see where it goes. That's scary and that's pretty brave to do.
Well, thank you. It is scary and it is scary.
And I think it's good to show the world that can be done. I can't speak for everybody, but so much of a layoff is I just landed in another similar job at another company, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is, I don't know that I'm keeping myself open to completely different other opportunities down the road.
Or we become dependent on our paycheck. We become dependent on what we were earning. And the reality is that we look for things to replace that as quickly as possible. And there's some risks to that too.
Absolutely. Well, again, Ari, thank you so much for your time and sharing your wisdom and your F-bombs and all the insights that you did share with us today.
Well, thanks, Jen. Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was. Thank you so much, Ari. Have a good one. We'll talk soon.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Okay.